I've watched horror films my whole life, but I still get caught out by unexpected jump scares. So today I thought it would be really fun to go through and talk about the top 10 scariest jump scares, to me personally anyway. Because I'm going to be talking about certain scenes in films, of course it will contain some spoilers, but you can always use the timestamps, that's why I put them there, so you can skip around and choose to miss out a film if you really don't want to know anything about it. Coming in at 10th place, we have a scene from Smile from 2022, and this is in last place because the jump scare was ruined by the trailer, but although I saw it coming, it still got me. I do think it's one of those that even if you haven't seen the trailer, you can see it coming from a mile off, but it is sometimes just that build-up of tension when you know something is gonna happen, and it can just make things even worse. A bit of context leading up to this jump scare. Smile is a curse film. You contract this curse by seeing someone off themselves in front of you whilst they are smiling. This isn't really them, they kind of taken over at this point. Our main character Rose contracts this curse, and we see as the days go on, basically she has 7 days, very similar to The Ring, where things just get really weird. She starts to see things that aren't really there, and this curse just really messes with her. The jump scare scene is where Rose is sitting outside her sister's house, and she's just spoken to her sister, but her sister comes walking back out of her front door, comes walking up to her car. She's walking quite fast, so at this point we are a bit suspicious, and it is a little bit obvious that it's going to probably make us jump in some way or another. But we see her sister standing at her window, and then her head turns all the way around in a very unnatural way. Like I said, this was in the trailer, which is really annoying, but it is still just really quite shocking to see because obviously it's such an unnatural way to be with her whole neck like bending round. In 9th place, we have a jump scare from the film Sinister. I've spoken about this many times, but Sinister has been crowned one of the scariest horror films. At one point, I think it was crowned #1 for quite a few years. I'm not sure what's #1 at the moment. I know the film, the found footage film Host, did overtake it for a little while, but honestly I do agree. I do think Sinister is an absolutely terrifying film, with the jump scares, with the imagery, and also just the storyline, which is absolutely horrific. As we follow a family that move into a new home, the father is a writer and he doesn't tell his family the reason why they've moved in is because it has a dark past. Some murders actually took place there, and he's hoping to find inspiration from that. One night he finds a box of film reels in the loft and decides to give them a watch to find out that they are actually snuff films of children killing their whole families, and these children are not possessed but kind of in control by an entity called Mr. Boogie. Every scene with Mr. Boogie on the screen scares the living daylights out of me, especially within the tapes, because he's not always the front focus. He's usually in the background or off to the side. It's those moments where you see him and it just makes your stomach drop because you realise he's been standing there the whole time. Now, the scene that is forever ingrained in my brain is right at the end, where we have quite a tragic ending and we see the children go off with Mr. Boogie. We're just seeing an empty room, and then suddenly Mr. Boogie just pops out on the screen and gives us all a heart attack. I think the first time I watched this, it actually made me jump out of my skin. Even now, and I know it's coming, it still gets me. I don't know if it's actually worse now because the tension and anxiety waiting for it to happen, but that's just a movie moment that I will never forget. We now have a jump scare from a film that came out this year, Hokum. This is one of my favourite releases. I love the story, I love the visuals, and I love the horror and the scares. Watching this at the cinema is like going on a roller coaster. I did watch it twice at the cinema, and the amount of jump scares, the tension, and just the crazily creepy moments that keep you on the edge of your seat are what solidifies to me that this is one of the best horror films of this year. We follow a writer who travels to a remote hotel. He's there to scatter his parents' ashes, But whilst he's there, not long after he's arrived actually, he hears about a folktale of a witch that lived in the woods and is now supposedly locked in the honeymoon suite upstairs. The honeymoon suite is completely barricaded off, no one goes up there, but one of the workers goes missing on Halloween night, and our main character Om takes it upon himself to go and investigate in the honeymoon suite. In that hotel room, that is where things start to get crazy. It kind of goes 0 to 100 with the scares in the middle of the film. There's one jump scare in particular that is done so well. It's not an original idea, but it's an idea that's not done enough because it's so effective and unexpected. This jump scare is when Om is walking through a doorway and then we see something walking directly behind him, very unexpected because he's in this hotel room by himself. Not only is this a terrifying jump scare, it's a moment that just makes your stomach drop because something is so close to him. In 7th place is a jump scare from the film Barbarian, and this jump scare is a massive plot twist, so if you haven't seen Barbarian, maybe skip to the next film. I do think Barbarian is one of those films where it is best to go into knowing as little as possible. Obviously, I think that with all films, but it is films like this that have a massive plot twist and tone shift that I do encourage even more so. So in Barbarian, we follow Tess, who goes to stay at an Airbnb, but when she arrives, she realizes that there is a guy who is already staying there called Keith. Obviously, this is a massive red flag. She believes him and assumes that it's just been double booked and decides to go in and stay the night anyway, despite her better judgment. Barbarian is very aware of itself and plays into that with fake outs and making the audience believe one thing, and then something completely different happens. The scene that made me absolutely jump out of my seat at the cinema is following Tess finding a basement below the Airbnb and then kind of going missing because Keith can't find her, but then he finds that basement as well. He goes down there and then we get to see the death of Keith, but it is done in such a sudden, brutal way. One minute we're seeing our characters down a really creepy, dark underground tunnel, and then the next we're expecting maybe something to pop out, but not expecting something to grab Keith and smash his head against the wall, killing him, when I assumed, and I think a lot of people probably assumed, that he was going to be one of the main characters throughout the film. But no, he just gets killed off. Another reason why this is such a clever turn of events is because at the beginning we're very suspicious of Keith and kind of villainizing him, and then when this happens we realise that he was just a nice guy and feel really bad. In 6th place we have a found footage film, and that is Gonjiam Haunted Asylum. Now this film as a whole I would say is probably one of the scariest found footage films. We follow a group of influencers that go and live stream themselves looking around and exploring an old abandoned haunted asylum. This is the kind of thing that they're used to doing. They've done things like this time and time again and never really had too much trouble. So when they go in here and paranormal things start happening and really ramping up, it's terrifying to them, but their views are going up on their live stream, and of course they would do anything for views, so they stick with it, getting themselves in a worse and worse situation. This is kind of a slow burn where things start happening gradually, but the ending is just ramped up to the max and is absolutely terrifying and full of jump scares that just pop on your screen, and they look terrifying as well. They're not jump scares of something that is quickly shown. No, we get to see our characters' faces up close when they're obviously possessed. They look terrifying and it's held on the screen. They're kind of coming on and off the screen. So after that initial jump scare, you're kind of expecting more. But for me, even though I knew what to expect, it didn't make it any less terrifying, and it didn't stop me from being made jump time and time again. At number 5, we have an infamous scene from the film It Follows. Like the previous film, It Follows is another one that really scares me, But I would say this is the kind of film that the scares linger with me rather than a film like Gonjiam, where I'm kind of scared in the moment, but it passes. It Follows is more of a psychological horror that just gets under your skin. It Follows is a curse film that is passed on by having sex with someone, and the curse is that this entity will be walking towards you, it will be trying to get you. No matter what, it will not stop. It will be continuously walking towards you until it eventually catches up with you, or until you sleep with somebody else and pass on the curse. Now, this entity is a shapeshifter and can look like anyone. It can look like a stranger, or it can look like someone you know, which is the most terrifying thing to me. Obviously, because this entity isn't actually human, when it transforms into a humanoid form, it sometimes gets things wrong or just looks a bit uncanny. The scene that is forever in my mind is when our main character Jay is trying to escape and get away from this entity. She shut herself in a room. She lets some of her friends in and then gets a knock at the door and can hear it's some more of her friends behind the door. Obviously, she's very wary and is worried that it's not actually her friends, so her other friends open the door to confirm. They see it is her friends, so they open the door, not realizing that the entity is also there, who walks very fast and looks like an unnaturally tall man with very dark eyes. This is kind of similar to the Hokum jump scare where there is someone standing behind someone. It's so effective because it's so unexpected. We feel like we have a false sense of security when we see a character that we know, and then suddenly when we see something behind them, that is when we get that sinking feeling. I'm sure when I talk about this kind of jump scare, a lot of people probably think about the jump scare in Insidious. In fourth place, we have the film Hereditary, and the scene is a scene at the end, and it is one of those moments that you don't always see at first, which in my opinion can just make it even worse. So in Hereditary, we're following a grieving family who end up with just even more grief piled on top when another sudden tragic loss happens within the family. Whilst all this is happening, some family secrets are starting to uncover, and these are kind of paranormal occult secrets. In one of the scenes at the end, we see the son of the family, Peter, walking through the house. He knows something isn't right because of some of the events that have recently happened. It's late at night and we don't see it at first, but his mum is possessed and she is on the ceiling. In one scene, before we see her more clearly, she is actually on the ceiling in his bedroom, and I do think a lot of people wouldn't have noticed this because it's very, very dark. But as Peter walks through the house, we see his mum clearer on the ceiling, and that's a moment where we see him and she's kind of in the background, not always in focus, but when you notice her, it is just the most terrifying thing ever. Especially because she's his mum, now clearly something else. In third place, we have another film that came out this year, Obsession. This is a film that everyone's talking about at the moment, and for very good reason. It is a really good story, a really good film, but it's also absolutely terrifying. I'm sure talking about this film in the sense of jump scares, you probably have an idea of what I'm going to talk about. Maybe you're thinking of one of two scenes, because there are two scenes that really stick out to me in particular, but one that gave me full body shivers in the cinema because it was just so unexpected. We follow a guy called Bear who is obsessed with his co-worker Nikki, but he doesn't have the guts to actually ask her out, so he breaks a one-wish willow which grants him one wish. His wish is that he wishes Nikki would love him more than anything else. After this wish, everything changes. Nikki suddenly wants to be with him, but we soon realise this isn't actually Nikki. Nikki is kind of trapped as a passenger in her own body, whilst this wish is kind of taking over this wish version of herself. Every now and then we see the real Nikki come out, and she is terrified and traumatised obviously, but this wish Nikki wants Bear more than anything and wants to make him happy no matter what, but quite a few of her actions indicate to us that it's not a human in control. In one scene, Bear and Nikki are having kind of a heated argument and Bear isn't happy with what's going on, and Nikki kind of glitches out and suddenly starts walking backwards. It's almost like she was trying to reverse what just happened. The fact that it feels very inhuman and unnatural is what just makes it that much more intense. Now, my last two are jump scares that have basically stuck with me throughout my whole life. So in second place, we have a scene from the film The Ring. Now, this is an American remake of the Japanese film Ringu. This is the third curse film on the list, but the Ring franchise is definitely what inspired a lot of these later curse films. So this curse comes in the form of a videotape, a VHS tape that if you watch it, then you have 7 days before the spirit of a little girl will come out of the TV and get you. Once you've watched this videotape, you get a phone call straight after and you'll hear down the phone someone saying 7 days. Within those 7 days, strange things will start happening. And then when it gets to the 7th day, if you haven't got rid of the curse, then you will get scared to death. And this death, how the people look once they are found after Samara, the girl who comes out the TV, has paid them a visit, it is the most terrifying thing that I have ever seen. It's done with practical effects. You can see some behind the scenes, which is really cool, when we see the actors next to the messed up dummies of themselves. But after the first time I watched it, my biggest fear was being scared to death. I didn't know what it meant, but I just assumed that is what happened in the film, and it just seemed like the worst way to go. The scene that has a permanent place in my brain takes place at a funeral when some people are just talking about what happened to the girl whose funeral they're at and how they found her. Then we get a quick flashback of how they found her, which is inside a cupboard with a very messed up face. Being quite early on in the film and just being in the middle of a random scene felt very out of place. Nowadays we get this a lot in modern horror, but in the 2000s we didn't get that many quick flashes of disturbing images. In first place is a film that traumatized a whole generation of film lovers, and that's the film Signs. Now this film, if you watch it now, you may be confused, especially because the graphics haven't really held up. We follow a family who live on a farm and one day they wake up to crop circles in their cornfield. From here, things just escalate as they have an alien invasion. We start seeing sightings and a few aliens here and there hunting people down. News channels are warning people to stay inside, and the first sighting that we get to see of an alien on the news is an image that I think a lot of us remember. In comparison to the newer films on this list, if you watched them now, then this wouldn't have anything on them. But at the time, this was the scariest thing ever, especially because on the news, they're showing a children's birthday party. Then they suddenly pan round and there is an alien walking. Please let me know if that jump scare scene has also stuck with you for life, or what other jump scares you just haven't been able to get out of your head. As always, thank you so much for being here and hanging out today. I'll see you again in another one very soon.